Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new around here, my name's Danielle and I'm an Essex-based mum of one to a little boy named Leo, who is 3.5. He will be 4 in June. Today's video is a bit of a sit-down chat, kind of parenting themed one. So it's all about toddler tantrums and meltdowns. Now, I want to start off by saying this is by no means me trying to say that I'm a perfect parent. If anything, it's quite the opposite. It's something that we've really struggled with in our household. So if this is not your kind of video, or you find it quite triggering or something like that, please just click off of it and go on something else. Or if you really don't like me or my accent, or you want to correct my grammar, again, please just go somewhere else. Because this is just a really honest chat about things that we've been dealing with in our household and how we've overcome them. So I've done lots of reading on parenting books, listening to loads of parenting podcasts, as I'm sure we all do, looking at YouTube videos much like this. I came across a YouTuber, or all-round like businesswoman now, SJ Strum, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. She is the baby name expert for starters, and she also does gentle parenting. This is something that I started looking into when Leo was around 2, just following her, and so kind of the seed was planted. And then in a podcast, I actually heard her recommend this book, which is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And this has been the best parenting book I have ever read, and I actually wish that I'd read it before I'd even had Leo, so that I kind of could have nipped a lot of my kind of negative habits and stuff in the bud before we even got to all the bad part, really. Yeah, I've just found this really, really helpful, and there's been so many like tips and tricks in it that have just been amazing. So I'll start off first and foremost. When Leo was about 9 months old, he already started with the tantrums. He used to headbutt the floor. That didn't last for too long because he spoke really early, and he could conversate really early, like really early. By 18 months old, he was like speaking in sentences. So we kind of thought that we would kind of get out of all the tantrum side of stuff. But I guess we're both quite organised, maybe a bit too controlling parents, and it just seemed to amplify his tantrums, and they just got progressively worse. When we hit 3, we thought, oh, terrible twos is over, it's all going to be good. Oh no, we hit 3 and it got 10 times worse. He was hitting out, he was biting, it was just so much frustration and so much anger. And this is when I came across this book and read this. Honestly, I would just want to read this like 10 times over, because every time I read parts of it, I learn something new. It's just so much information to take in. So I wanted to share with you some of the techniques and things that we've used. So I've just got my little list here. So sorry if I keep looking down, but I don't want to forget anything. So it's just a few things that we've really liked using. The first one that we used, which is the most basic really, is when he's really, really upset, and I'm talking like full on like tears. It's been really like an emotional outburst for him. We just ask him if he wants to hug, because there's no point trying to discipline or talk to them when they're at that stage. They're so upset and worked up and the adrenaline's going. Just by giving him a hug, it just calms him down, and then a little bit later, like 10 minutes later, we can then discuss it and talk through it with him. And it's just been a really, really good way for us to like kind of deal with that situation, and just to kind of turn it on its head really. Like a few months before that, I probably would have got really angry that he was screaming so much and crying, but obviously when you start looking into it from a different perspective, and you know that they can't really control these outbursts, yeah, just by asking for a hug, and that, you know, seemed to really help. Not all the time, you know, sometimes I would ask for a hug and he would say no, or he'd hit me or something like that, or hit me in the face with something, but like 9 times out of 10 that did really work. The next tip that I thought was really good, and I actually didn't think this was going to work when I read about it, but I tried it and it did really work well, was when he was starting to get himself into a bit of a meltdown, I would just grab a piece of scrap paper and a pen or crayon or whatever was to hand, put it on the floor and say, show me how angry you are with your drawing. And the first time I tried this, he literally just jumped to his knees, picked up the crayon and just scribbled like really angrily all over the paper. And he's like, oh, I feel like this. And then he was like, oh, that looks like a snowstorm. Literally tantrum over, like that was it. And we just laughed about it. I was like, oh, it does look like a snowstorm, you're right. And then that was it. Like, yeah, it it's a distraction, isn't it? It's just a little tool to be able to pull out your pocket and use as like an art of distraction. So that method worked really well, and you can always just stick a scrap bit of paper in your bag with a pen. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just something to try when they're getting into that kind of meltdown, like anger stage. Now the next one is quite a long-winded one, so I will kind of talk you through it. It's getting them involved, especially at Leo's age now. This is starting to work really well with finding a solution. So basically I'd actually just read the chapter in this book about it, and I was driving home from work and my husband called, and he was just like completely at the end of his tether. He was like, he's running around again with I'm trying to do dinner time, there's food all over the floor, he's been really hyped up and silly, like just being really naughty. And every time my husband was asking him to sit back down, he was doing the whole like ha ha, like just running and throwing stuff. And he'd been doing this for about 2 weeks. Normally he will sit and eat his dinner, like that's just the rules in our house, you asked to get down off the table and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, 2 weeks we'd had this behaviour where he was just been a bit of a rebel at dinner times. It wasn't really eating because he was just messing around, and it was caused a bit of trouble. So I said, let me handle it when I get home. I've got an idea from the book that I was reading. So I was in the car and I was kind of thinking about how I was going to handle it and how I was going to apply it to this situation. Got indoors and I grabbed my notepad off the side and I said, Leo, could I have a meeting with you, please? And he was like, yeah. So I was like, right, yeah, come and sit on the sofa. So I turned the TV off. I said, right, we have a problem. Now the problem is that you're running around at dinner time and we need to find a solution, because that's really dangerous what you're doing, because you could choke, you could trip over and you're getting food all over the floor. And he was like, okay. I was like, so let's think of a solution for it. Let's just think of some ideas. Let's make a list. And he was like, okay. I was like, do you have any suggestions? And he was a bit like, didn't really understand at this point. Obviously, he's only 3.5. So I said, okay. So the first solution that I've got is we're going to buy a baby's high chair again, and we're going to strap you into a high chair, and that's where you can eat your dinner. And he sort of pulled a face, and I was like, right, and have you got a suggestion? He was like, yeah, you could trip me over when I'm running so I fall on the floor. I was like, right. So I'm just writing everything down. We come up with 10 different solutions in the end. And then I said, right, let's go to the top. So when we're giving the solutions, we don't you don't comment or like go into that solution at all, like give it a positive or a negative, just write it down. So right, let's go back to number 1, baby's high chair. He was like, no way. I was like, okay. So I crossed it off. Then we went to the next one of the tripping over one. I said, well, I'm not too happy with that one because you could hurt yourself if I tripped you over, and you know, you could hit your face or you could choke. And he was like, yeah, that's a silly idea. So crossed it out. We basically went through the list, and the solution that he was happy with was that he was going to choose his chair at the start of the meal around the table. We've got 6 different chairs around our table, and then once he's chosen his chair, that is where he will sit and eat. So our part of the deal kind of really is to make sure that we ask which chair he wants to sit on at the start of the meal. And lo and behold, it has worked every time. That was about a month ago, and he sits and eats his dinners absolutely fine. 3 meals a day, we have no trouble. So fingers crossed that's worked really, really well. We've actually also done that with him getting up and down in the night, like early hours of the morning. And again, fingers crossed, that has worked really well for us. Instantly, the moment I thought this is going to work, it was when we come up with a solution at the end, the look of pure pride on his face, like he was so pleased with himself. And I was like, it kind of mentions that in the book, and I just thought, this is going to work. Like, you know, you're just so hopeful, and it has. So yeah, I would really, really highly recommend that. Kind of just treating them like adults, and also you're providing them with the tools to solve things when they're a bit older. So yeah, so that one's really, really worked. The next one has been accepting things that are a little bit ridiculous without not arguing back, but without just correcting them. Like, let them have their dreams, even though it might be completely like Leo might say, oh, I want to be a dinosaur vet zookeeper when he's older. Obviously that's not going to happen, dinosaurs are extinct. But instead of me saying, oh, but you know, dinosaurs are extinct, you can't be that, you can be a paleontologist, that obviously winds him up because I'm telling him no, or, you know, you're like crushing their like dreams and everything and their imagination. So I just go along with it now. Okay, yeah, you're going to be a dinosaur vet zookeeper. Absolutely, of course you are. All sorts of things. It's not like the only thing, but you know, like just little things like that couldn't possibly be true, but you kind of just let them have their imagination and go with it whilst they're still young. The next one is trying to get him more involved in everyday tasks, and then praising him for his help, making him feel a bit more grown up. That's been really helping us. So recently, Leo cooked the dinner with me. I actually got this vegetable like chopping gadget for Christmas from my husband in my stocking. And I let him come up on the side and do it with me, because you can like put, you know, your onions and stuff, then put 2 hands on top and like just push the lid down and it just chops it all. So that was really easy because he absolutely loved doing it, and it was really safe. Obviously I was with him doing it and he really enjoyed it. And then he come and, you know, sat and ate the meal with us and was telling my husband about how he would prepare dinner for everyone. So he was really proud of himself, and it was something that he got to do, which normally I don't normally have him involved with dinner making, just because of like the chopping and the heat and obviously the oven and stuff. The next thing, which I have found the most tricky and is something that I'm still working on, is to have like less nagging. And I can hear myself doing it all the time and I find it really hard. This has definitely been the hardest change for me to make, but the constant nagging of, oh, you know, like, you've spilt your drink, or, you know, you've picked that up, look at the mess you've made. It's just constant, isn't it? I don't know if it's ingrained in us, but yeah, I'm doing it all the time. So if he spills something, instead of nagging or like telling him off, I'll just say, oh, the tea towel's hanging up on the oven door in the kitchen. And he's like, oh, okay. So he makes that choice to go and get the tea towel, bring it in, and he will mop it up for me. I'm not nagging him to doing it. I'm just putting the idea in his head. Or you can also use the method of like the one word kind of thing. So if you're asking them, you want them to put their coat on and you're going out the door, instead of going, oh, come on, we're going, we're going to be late, can you put your coat on, come on, you know, like that kind of thing. Just say like coat, like that, and then they'll pick it up and put it on. You've not asked them to put it on, you've just pointed out coat, and they obviously know that you're leaving, and they'll do it. Or if he knocks his like beaker over, like his cup thing, I'll just say, oh, cup, so he can see that it's knocked over. I'm not nagging him, I'm not going, oh, you've knocked it over again, you know, pick it up. Yeah, just cup, and he'll just pick it up, no nagging. And that has minimised a lot of our tantrums for me. Doing that is something that I'm still really working on, because I'm really not great at it. I do nag a lot. I just can't help it. I think I'm just moany. But yeah, I'm trying really hard with that one. And then the last one is by not taking over. And the example that I'm going to use again is putting on a coat. But if you've asked them to, you know, put their coat on, or you've given them their coat, pointed it out, and they're trying to put it on and they're struggling, by taking over and going, oh, just give it here, I'll put it on, like we need to leave or whatever. Or alternative by saying, oh, come on, it's easy, just do it. Obviously to them it's not easy, it's something that they're learning. Just point out, oh, you know, putting on your coat can be really tricky. Just to encourage them to carry on, like keep trying, sort of thing. That's a new one that we are trying, and I'm trying to like introduce into our life sort of changes at the moment. But it is working really well, just by pointing out that that's tricky. Don't make them feel silly by saying something that's easy, you can do that, because obviously at that moment in time it's not easy for them and they're really trying and struggling. But yeah, that's really helped. I think a lot of our parenting techniques we really do learn from our parents, our own parents, or our own upbringing, and sometimes that's not always what we want to do. I definitely found that with myself. I was becoming very shouty, and I didn't like how it made me feel. Like afterwards I would shout or something at him, raise my voice, and then I would feel terrible, and then I'd be apologising, and I just thought this doesn't sit well with me. And there were so many times where I would come out with a phrase and think, God, I just sounded like my mother. And it just didn't sit right with me. I wasn't comfortable doing it, so I knew something had to change. Yeah, finding this book and listening to like SJ and different parenting podcasts and stuff has really helped me come a long way actually with my style of parenting. It's something that I'm continuously working on. I'm trying my best, so please be kind with this video. I know I'm certainly not perfect, but I just thought I would share a couple of things that have worked really well for us, and to recommend that book as well, because the difference in our household right now is incredible. Like, we noticed at an early age that Leo was a very emotional child, as well as other family members, and like mentioned it to us. And then when he started nursery at the end of last year, immediately within a week they had picked up of how emotional Leo could be. So it's something that we do need to be mindful of and make sure that we're supporting him in the best way possible. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love it if you give it a big thumbs up, and I'd love it if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. Speak to you soon. Bye guys.